Last week we heard this beautiful image of God as an eagle. And we heard the song, He will lift you up on eagle's wings. Eagles are powerful, and the image of God as an eagle descending and carrying us away from our troubles. That sounds great. And eagles have these talons, like tear apart our enemies. That sounds nice in the situation when if we have something attacking us. So today though we have a different bird. God as a chicken. God as a chicken. What last week we sang, and I will lift you up on eagle's wings. How about today? And I will lift you up on chicken wings. It doesn't really have that same feeling of consolation. But Jesus refers to himself as a mother hen today. And that is especially strange after he had just called Herod a fox. We know what foxes do to chickens. So seriously, Jesus, couldn't you have picked a better bird? Chicken. What is going on today? Well, today you will notice that we've jumped many chapters ahead from last Sunday. Last Sunday in the Gospel of Luke, Jesus was in the wilderness getting tempted by the devil, and then Jesus commences his public ministry. So he begins his ministry. And today now we are almost near the end of Jesus' ministry. He has set his face to Jerusalem, and now he is on his way. And he's going to Jerusalem to be crucified. Along the way, he is met up with the Pharisees. And the Pharisees give him a warning. They say, hey, Herod wants to kill you. You better turn back. And it's interesting that they are the ones who are doing this because they might have thought, we just saw John the Baptist get killed. So it might have been a sincere warning to him. But Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem, and he won't stop till he gets there. Jerusalem in the Gospel of Luke is symbolic of a place of political power, great political power. Much like the way when we refer to DC, we think of it as the place of political power. And in Jesus' day, political power and religious power wedded together. So Jerusalem represented both the powerful religiously and the powerful politically. And usually this power has run amok. And if you recall, in Jerusalem, those who had the greatest power were those who were at the temple, the Sadducees, the king, Herod, and the Roman occupants, one of which is Pontius Pilate. So the Pharisees, interestingly enough, are the ones who are warning Jesus today, and they aren't as powerful as the others. They are in the synagogue and outside the temple, and they're giving Jesus this warning because they saw what Herod did to John. So it very well could have been a sincere warning to him. But Jesus doesn't seem to care about his own safety. He said to the Pharisees, go tell Herod, go tell that fox for me. Listen, I'm casting out demons and performing cures today, tomorrow, and on the third day I finish my work. And today, tomorrow, and the next day, I am on my way. I'm on my way to Jerusalem because it is impossible for a prophet to be killed outside of Jerusalem. Well, technically that's not true, right? Technically, we know prophets have been killed outside of the very city of Jerusalem. And so that's why it is important to remember that Jerusalem here is representative of these places of great political and religious power. And like many places that are powerful, there always needs to be a correction to that power. And God sends the prophets there to correct that power, that misuse of power. And typically the people who are powerful aren't listening. They don't change their ways. They are unwilling places. And instead of changing their minds, which is rare, they often continue to bear down on their madness and their violence. And they will kill the prophets, whoever resists this kind of madness, of violence. So Jesus looks upon places like this that are fraught with violence, and his compassion for these places still flows out of him. And he says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. Oh, how long I have desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings. And you were not willing. Unwilling, stubborn, obstinate. The human impulse to find meaning in power and control is as old as humanity. We have been bent on violence to be in power. And yet God has pursued humanity to return from our madness, to return to ourselves, which is to return to the fold of God, to return to belonging to God. And so Jesus paints for us today a picture of God as a mothering hen. A hen who wishes for her children to belong underneath her wings, to find their abode under her wings. At the end of this journey to Jerusalem, Jesus will offer his life as a hen among foxes. The foxes will come after the hen, like the political powers will come after Jesus, always bent on destruction and violence. And yet Jesus will give his life for all who live in Jerusalem. But only the willing will receive the gift. So, what if we were willing? And what does it look like to be willing? When I look at the picture of the mother hen that is on our bulletin cover today, with all those chicks gathered under her wings, I think, gosh, there's very little room in there. You know, if I were to gather under that wing, I couldn't take very much with me, you know? Like, where would my grudge fit under that wing? Where would my weapon fit under that wing? And hey, I don't get to choose who goes into that wing, underneath that wing. It's God who gathers. I don't get a choice as to who belongs under that wing. So if I look at that, how cramped it is, where there's no room for my ego or grudges or my weapons, and that the belonging is not up to me, but up to God, I have to ask, am I willing? Am I willing to be under there with none of my control, but only to receive, to be underneath those wings? Do I desire to be under those wings? So there's a word that repeats 3 times in today's gospel reading, and that word is desire. And it's incompletely translated in our NRSV. But this is, the same word is repeated. Herod desires to kill Jesus. Jesus desires, like the mother hen, to bring the chicks under her wings. And then Jerusalem does not desire it, does not desire to be brought in. So this desire is very important in this salvation being offered. This desire for God to be underneath those wings. Can we desire it when so much of the ways we desire are about, like, how can I grab this? And how can I grab that? How can I control this? And how can I control that? Those are usually our operative desires. And we can get so off the mark that we end up really hurting each other. Just see the destruction in our world from this kind of desire. So the desire that is given to us by Jesus as the mothering hen is a very needy desire. It's a very vulnerable desire. To be as a chick who desires to be enfolded is to surrender really the identity that we make around how to be powerful. To be a chick is to be vulnerable. So can we get in touch with this desire? It's not so simple. It's not so simple because we don't often know how our ego kind of enslaves us. People who are bent on violence, there's a madness there that seems like their very self is in bondage to the thing that they desire. It's not like they actually have too much control, even though it seems like that's what they're after and that's what they think they have. They don't really have that much control. Because the desiring that God gives us for God is a desiring that demands surrender. And this is the Lenten practice of desire. So, a lot of times in Lent, we do this kind of fasting where we kind of forget that our desire isn't really just our compulsion for chocolate and those kinds of things, right? It's that to desire is to desire God's desire. And that is a very different thing. And that requires this letting go, this vulnerability, this surrender to be enfolded in these arms of God or these wings of God, where there's no room for us to bring in our weapons, our grudges, our ego, where we are equal to everyone else within those wings. So I was talking to my niece the other day. She started raising chickens for her coop and wants to harvest eggs, and she's raising them from chicks. And I talked to her the other day and I said, how are your chicks working out? How are they growing? And she said, ugh, ah ye. Ah ye means auntie. Ah ye, they're so stupid. My chicks are so stupid. They would jump off the cliff if they thought that there was food there. I'm trying to throw away their poop and they'd go after it like it's food. They're so stupid. So in our scriptures, we have oftentimes people are referred to as sheep, and here we are referred to as chicks. And I think it's good to kind of notice how humble these animals are and what kind of humility it takes to notice this desiring for God, to be that humble, to be of that great need, is that and it's there that you desire God. And so for this next leg of our Lenten process, I invite you to move into that desire, the desire to hush our ego's grasping, to move into the desire of Jesus, and to let go of our desires for things that don't really tell us who we are, and move toward the God who tells us who we actually are, which is beloved, surrounded by God, the mothering hen.